The sky was painted in hues of violet and silver as the twin moons hovered above the ruins of a forgotten civilization. Vance tightened his grip on the hilt of his energy blade, his golden eyes scanning the ancient structures for any sign of movement. Beside him, Zalora moved with the grace of a shadow, her sapphire gaze reflecting a quiet intensity. They had been traveling together for months now, drawn together by fate, yet still wary of one another. Vance, a battle-hardened warrior, carried the scars of past betrayals, while Zalora, an enigmatic psychic, guarded her own secrets like precious treasures. Tonight, however, was different. The air pulsed with an unnatural energy. Something was coming. The silence shattered as a monstrous, insectoid creature lunged from the darkness, its exoskeleton gleaming like obsidian. Vance reacted instantly, his blade humming to life as he met the creature's charge with a precise strike. Zalora, standing slightly behind, did not move, at least, not physically. Her mind reached out, seizing the creature's consciousness in an invisible vice. "Don't kill it yet," she whispered, her voice calm despite the tension in the air. Vance hesitated, his instinct screaming otherwise. "Why?" Zalora's brows furrowed. "It's being controlled. There's something, no, someone, behind this." Vance gritted his teeth but obeyed. Instead of a fatal strike, he pivoted and slashed at the creature's legs, sending it crashing to the ground. Zalora stepped forward, placing her fingertips on the creature's armored forehead. A violent surge of psychic energy rippled through her body as she fought against an unseen force. Then, for the first time since they had met, Vance saw something in her eyes. "Fear." "I can't," she started, but a deafening roar cut her off as another wave of creatures emerged from the ruins. Vance moved on instinct, his body a whirlwind of motion as he cut down one creature after another. But he was only one man, and they were endless. Blood dripped from a gash on his arm, but he barely felt it. What he did feel, however, was Zalora's presence behind him, her power flaring like a dying star. "You have to push through," he said, his voice rough but steady. "Whoever is behind this, they're scared of you." Zalora's hands clenched into fists. "You don't understand. If I push too hard, I might lose myself." Vance turned, his blade slicing through the last of the immediate threats. He met her gaze, stepping closer. "Then don't do it." Alone, for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, with a deep breath, Zalora reached out, not just with her mind, but with trust. Vance felt a sudden, overwhelming warmth flood his thoughts. Images flashed before him, Zalora's past, her pain, the chains that had once bound her mind to a master who sought only destruction, and then he understood. She had been a weapon, just like he had. The turning tide. Zalora exhaled, and the air trembled. The remaining creatures shrieked, their bodies convulsing. As the unseen puppet master lost control, a single figure stood at the edge of the battlefield, a robed man, his face hidden in the shadows. "So," the figure mused. "You finally woke up." Vance raised his blade, but Zalora stopped him with a hand on his wrist. "Not yet," she whispered. "He's more than he appears," the figure chuckled. "And so are you." The battle was over, but the war had just begun. And for the first time, Vance and Zalora stood together, not as reluctant allies, but as something far more dangerous. As equals a world on the brink. The camera sweeps over a vast, desolate landscape, ancient ruins bathed in the eerie glow of twin moons. The atmosphere is tense, filled with the distant hum of alien winds. There are places in this galaxy that were never meant to be found. And yet, here we are, drawn to them like moths to a dying star. Vance, a battle-worn warrior, walks through the ruins, his energy blade resting against his back. He is focused, tense. Behind him, Zalora follows silently, her piercing blue eyes scanning the shadows. "Vance, I don't like this. It's too quiet." Zalora, the quiet is always deceiving. The echoes of the past never truly fade. Vance gives her a sharp look. He has always found her words cryptic, but there is something different in her tone today, something troubled. Zalora whispers, touching the ancient walls, "This place remembers." A sudden gust of wind sends a cloud of dust spiraling into the air. A shadow shifts in the distance. First contact. The silence is shattered as a monstrous, insectoid creature bursts from the ruins, its exoskeleton gleaming like dark metal. Vance, instinctively drawing his blade, "Stay behind me." Zalora does not move. Instead, she raises a hand, her eyes glowing with psychic energy. "Zalora, it's being controlled." Vance hesitates. His instincts tell him to strike first, but something about Zalora's certainty makes him pause. The creature lunges. Vance moves, his blade slicing through the air. But instead of killing it, he aims to disable, slashing at its legs. The creature crashes to the ground. "Vance, you better have a good reason for this." Zalora pressing her fingers to the creature's forehead, "Someone is watching through it. Controlling it. And I intend to find out who." Suddenly, Zalora stiffens. Her body trembles, and Vance sees something rare in her expression: fear. The unseen enemy. Zalora's mind is flooded with visions, chaotic images of chains, fire, and a distant figure. Shrouded in darkness. She gasps, stumbling backward. Vance catches her. "Vance, Zalora." She looks up, her eyes unfocused. Zalora hoarse whisper, "He's here." A deep, otherworldly voice echoes through the ruins, mysterious figure, telepathically, "Still resisting, little one? You cannot run forever." Vance spins, searching for the source, but there is no one, only shadows. Then, the ground trembles. The ruins shake as more creatures emerge from the darkness, their eyes glowing with the same eerie energy. Vance, damn it. We're surrounded. Zalora steeling herself, "No. We fight. The battle for survival." The battle erupts. Vance moves like a storm, cutting through the creatures with brutal efficiency. Zalora, standing at the center, uses her psychic abilities to manipulate the battlefield, sending enemies crashing into walls, turning their own minds against them. The fight is relentless. Vance takes a hit, sharp claws slashing across his arm. Blood drips, but he doesn't falter. "Vance, this isn't ending. They just keep coming." Zalora looks toward the ruins. The air around her shimmers with psychic energy. "Zalora, it's because of him. He's still controlling them." She turns to Vance, her expression troubled. "Zalora, I need to break his hold. But if I go too deep, I might not come back." Vance hesitates. This is the first time she's ever admitted vulnerability. "Vance, then I'll pull you back." A brief moment passes. Then, she nods. She closes her eyes, reaching out with her mind. The battlefield distorts as her consciousness collides with the dark presence controlling the creatures. The mind duel. Inside the psychic realm, Zalora finds herself face to face with the mysterious figure, a tall, hooded entity with burning red eyes. Mysterious figure, foolish girl. You cannot escape what you are. Zalora clenches her fists, trying to push back, but the entity's power is overwhelming. Her past memories resurface, her time as a weapon, the chains that bound her will. Mysterious figure, you belong to me. Zalora, whispering, then louder, "No. Not anymore. Back in the real world." Vance watches as Zalora trembles, locked in her psychic battle. He sees the creatures falter, some dropping lifeless, others twitching uncontrollably. "Vance, come on, Zalora. You're stronger than this." Zalora screams, a burst of pure psychic energy erupting from her. The creatures collapse. The air stills, she gasps, collapsing into Vance's arms. The aftermath revelation. Vance helps Zalora sit up. She is weak but alive. The battlefield is quiet. Vance, softly, you did it. Zalora looks at him. Something unreadable in her gaze. Zalora, he's not gone. He was testing me. Next time, he'll be stronger. A shadowy figure appears at the edge of the ruins. The mysterious figure, now fully revealed, a robed man with glowing red eyes. Mysterious figure, you cannot fight fate forever, Zalora. The storm is coming. Then, he vanishes. Vance, well. That's not ominous at all, Zalora chuckles weakly. For the first time, there's warmth between them, an understanding, a partnership forged in battle. Vance, we'll face him. Together, Zalora, soft smile, together. The camera pans out, showing the vast ruins, the lingering threat in the air, and the two figures, standing side by side, ready for what comes next. Aftermath. Unanswered questions. The ruins are eerily silent. The bodies of fallen creatures lie scattered, their once glowing eyes now darkened husks. Vance kneels beside Zalora, who is still weak from the psychic battle. Vance concerned, you alright, Zalora? I just fought a nightmare in my own head. Could use a drink. Vance smirks but doesn't laugh. He notices her hands trembling. She's trying to hide her exhaustion. Vance gruffly, take a minute. No need to act tough. Zalora, raising an eyebrow, that's rich, coming from you. She exhales deeply, then turns her gaze to where the mysterious figure had stood. A shadow lingers in the air, an afterimage burned into reality itself. Zalora, serious, he didn't just test me. He marked me. Vance, tense, meaning. She pulls back her sleeve, revealing a faint, glowing sigil etched into her skin, a symbol that pulses with dark energy. Zalora, it's a link. He can find me wherever I go. Zalora, raising an eyebrow, that's rich, coming from you. She exhales deeply, then turns her gaze to where the mysterious figure had stood. A shadow lingers in the air, an afterimage burned into reality itself. Zalora, serious, he didn't just test me. He marked me. Vance, tense, meaning. She pulls back her sleeve, revealing a faint, glowing sigil etched into her skin, a symbol that pulses with dark energy. Zalora, it's a link. He can find me wherever I go. A new plan. They set up camp inside a partially collapsed structure. The crackling of a small fire flickers between them. Zalora, sitting against a stone wall, traces patterns in the dirt while Vance sharpens his blade. Vance, so, what's the next move? Zalora, we find Harrow's vault. Vance stops sharpening. Vance, that's a myth. Zalora, shrugging, so was half the universe before it was discovered. Vance, what's inside? Zalora, hesitating, answers. Maybe even a way to sever my link to him. Vance, or a trap. Zalora, that too. They exchange a look. Vance sighs. Vance, figures. Zalora, smirking, what, getting tired of running headfirst into death? Vance, nah. Just making sure you know what you're doing. Zalora, softer, I don't. But I have to try. Vance watches her, noting the vulnerability behind her words. For the first time, she's not acting like she has all the answers. The journey begins. They trek across the desolate landscape, heading toward an ancient waypoint. The wind howls around them, carrying whispers, phantom voices from the past. Zalora, quietly, they're watching. Vance tightens his grip on his weapon. His combat senses scream at him, but there's nothing visible. Vance, who, suddenly, a ripple in space, a tear in reality, opens before them. From within, shadowy figures emerge, cloaked in dark mist. Their forms shift, as if not entirely solid. Zalora, tensing, Wraithborn. Vance, fantastic. Another thing that wants to kill us. the Wraithborn move with unnatural speed, darting toward them, Vance, shouting, "We're fighting these things, right, Zalora?" Grimly, "No choice." The Wraithborn battle. The fight is chaos. Vance's strikes pass through the creatures, their bodies reforming before his eyes, Vance growling, "I hate fighting ghosts," Zalora concentrating, "They're not ghosts. They're echoes of the lost. You have to disrupt them, not cut them." Vance pulls out an energy grenade, hurling it into the mass of Wraithborn. A pulse of light erupts, and several of them vanish into the ether, Vance grinning, "That work, Zalora, better than stabbing air, at least." But suddenly, one of the Wraithborn lets out a piercing shriek. The shadows around them shift, converging into a towering nightmare, a massive entity with a jagged crown of bone. Vance, muttering, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." The Wraith King reaches for Zalora. Vance, without thinking, grabs her wrist and throws her behind him, standing between her and the entity. Zalora, startled, "Vance, what are you?" Vance, gritted teeth, "Stay back." The Wraith King swings a spectral blade, slamming into Vance's side. He grunts, pain flaring through his ribs, but he doesn't fall. Zalora's hands tremble as she watches him fight. Something in her stirs, an unfamiliar feeling. A need to protect him. Zalora, not this time. Her eyes blaze with psychic energy as she unleashes a massive force wave, shattering the Wraith King into a million fragments. Vance staggers, breathing heavily. "Vance, you had that in you the whole time?" Zalora, "Maybe you're just good at pissing me off." Trust the road ahead. They sit on a rocky ledge, catching their breath. Zalora glances at Vance's injuries. "Zalora, you're bleeding." "Vance, you noticed." She moves closer, pressing a hand over his wound. A soft glow emanates from her palm. His pain lessens. Vance, raising an eyebrow, "Didn't know you could heal." Zalora, "I usually don't. Costs too much energy." Vance, "Then why waste it on me?" Zalora, quietly, "Because you're the only one still standing beside me." A heavy silence. Vance looks at her, realizing something is shifting between them. He exhales, looking toward the horizon. "Vance, so. Harrow's vault?" Zalora, nodding, "Harrow's vault." The camera pans out, a long journey ahead, but something unspoken now connects them. The bond between warrior and outcast, between protector and the protected. Narration, Zalora, voiceover, "The past is catching up. The war hasn't even begun. And for the first time in my life, I'm not facing it alone."